Welcome everybody back to the Ginger Joe podcast. As you can tell, I have drawn the long straw and I've got the job of hosting today, so you'll get a lot more insight from the three other guys. We'll be reviewing Royal Ascot, not just in terms of the winners, but also potentially looking ahead as to where runners that participated may go next. So there might be a couple of Ante-Post gems in the next hour or so. But as always, firstly, we'll just check in with everybody. So firstly, Joe, how's things, mate?
Yeah, good, mate, good. Obviously, with this hot weather, it's not something I'm fully partial to. It did take me about a minute to find my glasses a minute ago, and then I realised they're on my head when we went live. So there they are. I've got my glasses now. So yeah, I think I'm okay, mate. But yeah, we'll find out shortly.
Good. Jaime, all hot and bothered, or how's your form? How are you doing?
Oh, I'm fine, man. Grand. Not as hot here. Never is, unfortunately, but we're surviving.
Good. And special guest, if he's not too busy on Sky Sports, TalkSPORT, or hosting all of his own shows over on the Final Furlong pod, we're very glad to be joined by Emmet Kennedy, one of the busiest men in the game. So thank you for your time, Emmet. How are you?
Yeah, I'm in good form, Jamie. Jamie, Liam, Joe, I'm in good form. My brain is already broken. My brain is already broken.
Are you sure it's not hot over there?
Yeah, we were talking about the fact that it's nice and humid. We don't really have the sunshine, but I'm struggling in it. And Joe was saying this isn't good for him because he's a ginger. What the hell is going on with me? Like it's nowhere near 30 degrees, and I'm only just about able to say someone's name. This is going to be a fun show.
You're going to fit in just fine, Emmet.
Yeah, hopefully so. We'll crack straight into it then. Obviously, we'll start on the Tuesday, and there might be a bit of back slapping on our own part because we did have a good few winners when we did our quick fire 16 race preview, which we managed to achieve in around about half an hour prior to the Royal meeting. So we'll start with the Queen Anne, and this horse was put up between the three of us. Docklands at 20s on that show and ended up getting his head in front. I think some people are still watching this, just waiting for Rosallion to hit the line first, Joe. Is he the one to take out of it? And what did you make of the race as a whole?
Yeah, he is, mate. He is. But it wasn't me that was on Docklands. I was actually on lead artist. I sort of gave him a chance coming back from the lock injury. I thought he might be able to back it up, but he was very disappointing, 7th of 10. But yeah, look, Rosallion, I mean, look, he was clearly the best of these as a 3-year-old. He won the Irish 2000 Guineas. He won the St. James Palace, but he's yet to win as a 4-year-old, and I can't figure him out. It's either the fact that he's 95% and needed an extra run and he'll come back to his best next time from that injury, or it's the fact that injury is perhaps taking 5% out of him. I could be being a little bit harsh. He is running well in defeat, isn't he? I suppose Docklands enjoyed Ascot, didn't he? He's got 2 Royal Ascot wins now. He's only won 4 times in his career, so but you know what? Potentially Docklands was just too good on the day, and it was still a good run from Rosallion. At the end of the day, he still beat the rest, and it'll be interesting to see them go against each other next because I think they'll end up going down the Sussex route, the pair of them over a mile, and they'll both try and take on Field of Gold, which is another story. But yeah, look, good run from them both, but no money earned from me in that opener anyway.
No. Jaime, any more to add from yourself? As Joe mentioned with Docklands, I think he's got form figures of 3 runners-up medals here, as well as a 3rd place, and now the 2 wins. Was he worthy of the win, or do you think Rosallion was a little bit unlucky?
Well, first and foremost, I think I said one show. I don't think they started living a group race, and then he wins a Group 1 just to annoy me.
What, Docklands?
He seems like he's an Ascot specialist. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Rosallion, I thought, not the crib, Sean Levy. I think if he got that back again, he'd won. But I think most of the jockeys came in and said, Colin Keane, especially on lead arse, said there wasn't enough pace. Dancing Gemini, the jockey said there wasn't enough pace. Notice with the speech, I just can't figure out that horse, to be honest with you. Won a poor Sussex last year. You have to admit.
Awful.
I don't think you'll ever see. Well, I'm going to make a statement. I don't think you'll ever see him in a Grade 1, a Group 1 again. Maybe in America, going around.
On the dirt also.
Another 100 yards bend. Wait, there's another 100 yards bend around the corner. Kind of a start. That's kind of a horse. But Rosallion, no choice but to go down the Sussex route. Can I see any of these horses beating Field of Gold in a Sussex and in the future? The answer is a big, huge no.
Fair enough. Emmet, are we being a little bit unfair on Docklands, or do you concur with what the boys are saying?
No, I really like Harry Eustace and really like the team he's assembled. And it's a great story with Docklands. I mean, he's obviously a fantastic racehorse. We put him up on the podcast as well. I only did him from the point of view of exotics, but Peter Michael was all over him. He's one of his best bets of the day. So hats off to him. I guess when Sardinian Warrior came out, we should have been a little bit more alert to him and realized the actual only horse that beat him in the trial for this race, which has a good record of producing winners.
Interesting.
The 33 to 1 shot that won this race was fourth in that race back in the day.
Okay.
I'm tried that brain has completely melted down on me entirely. Lord Glitters, there we go.
Oh yeah, of course.
He came from that race as well. But isn't this just a mess of a race? Like, for all that I can like Docklands, and if they keep him to a mile and they keep him to Europe and they don't go back to Australia and they don't go messing around with 10 furlong races on international travels, he'd be a big player in the QE2. But that's assuming Field of Gold has gone to 10 furlongs. Like, none of this lot will get anywhere near him. And I'd say your point, Joe, about the respiratory infection that Rosalian had, like, that must have taken a fair chunk out of him for him to miss the entirety of last season. So even if you go back over his form, he beats Unquestionable in the Prix Jean-Luc Lagardère. He beats Hatem in the Irish 2000 Guineas with River Tiber back in third. He beats Henry Longfellow in the St. James's Palace Stakes. Like, River Tiber was sent off to stud in France. Henry Longfellow was packed off to stud very, very quickly by Coolmore. They didn't decide to bring him back as a 4-year-old. They would have loved a Dubawi, who's a multiple Group 1 winner, so he was no good. What did he do really last year? And that notable speech, that's 5 Group 1 defeats. I think he was very lucky to win the 2000 Guineas. He was hard fit from 3 races. He won the worst running of the Sussex I can remember. He didn't get a great ride in this race, and the race was a bit of a nightmare, and Buick ends up throwing away the whip as well. So I'm sure people will mark him up. Wouldn't touch him with a barge pole. Lake Forest has done nothing for the form. Maybe the race came a little bit too quickly, but I think him getting turned over a trip that should have suited him at York just raises further question marks about this. There's a lot of people are going to get excited about Rosalian. I'm not sure if Rosalian's form is good enough anyway, and I'm really not sure about him physically. And people might be saying, Joe, geez, that's harsh. He's only had 2 runs this year to be questioning him. I'm with you. I'd have a big, big raised eyebrow about him going forward. And none of this lot will get near Field of Gold. But more importantly, let's say Field of Gold doesn't turn up for a race. I'd be back in Henri Matisse to beat him.
Yeah, I quite like Henri Matisse. I became a big fan of him sort of towards the end of last season, and again, like we said, there's been a bit of an interrupted sort of career and preparation now for Rosalian at like a crucial time, and there might be something that comes in, picks him off again in the Sussex. It might just be the way that his season's going to go now, is that he's not quite there, and he might find one too good again. Probably, like we said, Field of Gold. But yeah, look, just big reservations now over Rosalian. He's clearly talented, but you're still backing him next time in the Sussex with the hope that he finds his 3-year-old form as a 4-year-old, which we're not totally sure we've seen just yet. And you have to obviously assume that he's going there 100%. So there's a few risks.
Sorry, Joe.
No, that's it. I just say there's a few risks attached now, and you don't watch the Queen Anne and then worry for Field of Gold, do you? If you're on him Ante-Post for the Sussex, for example, I don't think there's many people that think Rosalian will beat Field of Gold on what we've seen this season, anyway.
No, I agree. And I think with regards to Rosalian, he's now, obviously value is in the eye of the beholder, and it's very objective. But I don't think he's really ever going to be inserted into a market at a price where you think, oh, he's worth a few quid at that price. I think he's always going to be pretty short.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's interesting to see how he gets on next time, but you'd want to see him improve if you're backing him, or you'd want to be under that assumption if you're taking on the favourite. I think if Field of Gold turns up, so I don't think he's going to go for it.
Just say, like, for all that I like Docklands and like the team involved in it, it's a great story. He's winning a Group 1.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like he's a Group 1. Obviously, he is a Group 1 horse now, effectively, but it doesn't feel like he's a top draw horse that you wouldn't put your money on him back in that performance, would you?
The question is, would you back him to win the QE2 on Champions Day at Ascot? Would you back Docklands to win that race?
I'd back him to be placed, which is pretty much what I was doing in this race.
Yeah.
He'd have to come into consideration because of the Ascot form, wouldn't he? And don't know what price he is for that at the moment. But
would any of you back Persica to win a Group 1?
The Hannon horse?
Yeah. Who beat Docklands in the Diamond Stakes? No, none of us would.
I haven't even thought of that form line either, but probably not still.
The one that would interest me because I think this lot is just a bunch of rubbish, really.
Are you going to say the horse that finished third?
No, I was...
Okay, so there's an interesting one there too. I'll have a word after that.
Yeah, for sure. Alassane source. The ex-O'Brien one. He'd be interesting. The one that interests me is the one who didn't turn up, Sardinian Warrior. That form at Saucy, I think, is going to be red hot, and I'm really intrigued to see where they go with him. It's disappointment that he missed it. But I think Docklands is a really solid horse. He's consistent. He was an ideal one for the exotics. Diego Velasquez has blown out spectacularly. Dancing Gemini, jeez, what do you even do with him now? Lead artist has shown nothing. The Australian/American horse clearly wasn't ready for it. I just think they're all a bunch of... They're like the sprinters. They'll just keep beating one another.
Yeah, they're not top draw, are they? It doesn't feel quite like that, does it? This year.
I'd be pretty confident they'll struggle to give weight to Henri Matisse.
Yeah, I agree. I'd share that opinion with you, I think.
Never mind what Field of Gold will do to this lot.
He'll demolish them, only. But there's an interesting one. Finished third, Kairos at 100 to 1. Like you said, came from the Ballydor camp. May not be anything special, but he was second or third in the Huxley Stakes, which is a Group 2 or Group 3, one or the other. And then he's actually ran really well here. He was sweating up at the start, slow to get into stride. He hasn't finished far away. I just chuck him in your tracker and see what they do with him. If they drop in grade, he's going to have a massive chance wherever he goes. And probably because of the price he went off in the Queen Anne, he might go a little bit overpriced again. So I put Kairos in your tracker, maybe out of the Queen Anne for me.
There we are. So one to go in people's trackers that place at 100 to 1. And a nice little segue into our next race, the Coventry, because we mentioned on the preview the fact that in 2024, the first four horses home were priced 80s, 40s, 50s, 40s. And we did say, if anybody fancies something at a big price, do not be put off. We didn't exactly put them up, but the second and third were 80s and 66s. But that didn't matter because Jaime Wrenn found the winner, which meant that us slot on the preview were 2 from 2. Jay, were you impressed? All the talk was about Charles Darwin and Albert Einstein. And then this lad goes and follows up to maintain his perfect record. You tipped him at a nice price, and also a nice little form line for another winner for you later in the week, which I'm sure we'll get on to.
Yeah, I was impressed. Did he get a pound more than Charles Darwin after the classifications came out afterwards, which it's great to see. I suppose the little crib is that, he's beaten an 80 to 1 shot and a 66 to 1 shot, but there's 2 horses behind him, regards that what he's going to go on to now, like National Stakes and the Cora and all that, Group 1s and towards the end. You're looking at Dewhurst down the line, aren't you? And then you're looking at when Albert Einstein come back. They have Charles Darwin as well, for probably a middle park horse is Charles Darwin, probably up to 6 furlongs. But you're going to have to take out of this for Joseph O'Brien. For the Qatar crowd, he's definitely caught my eye. But the one I will keep an eye on with regards to going towards, I think it's like there's a 6 furlong Group 2 to July meeting, is horse that fell out the stalls for Hamid Hani, whatever, James, it was Postmodern, who was well fancied here. He definitely caught my eye because I think if he didn't, he wouldn't have won the race, but I'd say he'd have been placed behind Gestad and probably been second. So he's definitely who might be a bit of a price when it comes. I think it's the Duke of Cambridge over 6 furlongs. I think something like that, something along the lines of that anyway. But Andab will probably win maybe Group 1, Group 2 when there's none of the Albert Einsteins and the Gestads of this world turning up over in Ireland. But they'll be the 2 I take out, but Gestad is definitely going to go on to your main Group 1s here in Ireland towards the end of the season and looking like to be up then to Dewhurst horse towards the end of the season, I think, anyway.
No, fair enough. Obviously, not an awful lot of form coming into this, Emmet. It's a little bit of a trappy and difficult race, hence why all these big prices have filled the frame over the last couple of years and historically. What did you make of Gestad? Do you think Connections was slightly surprised? He evidently wasn't in the top 2 in terms of the pecking order.
Yeah, I'm slightly surprised he was sent off the price he was on debut. I know that they really fancied True Love that day, and they learned an awful lot about her. Essentially, she needs a fast 5 furlongs and a strong pace to aim at. But Aidan O'Brien highlighted this horse at the start of the season at the stable tour as one to follow and one that they were excited by. And yet he's 7 to 1 on debut. And then he's the super sub, if you like, for Albert Einstein, who they clearly love and rate very, very highly. We'll see what he can do afterwards. He managed to overcome a lot of interference to go and beat Andab the previous day. And Andab's run a big race here. I thought he was magic. We were pretty confident about him on TalkSPORT 2 as well in the lead up and on the Final Furlong. Adam Mills wouldn't hear a defeat from him, to be fair. He travelled powerfully. the fact that he was ridden up the center of the track and just quickened away in the way that he did, I really, really like that. I think physically, he's towering over this lot. I think that was a point that Ryan Moore made afterwards. I think he's well forward. He's much more ahead of this lot right now. In time form race, rated him one of the best winners of this race in the last 10 years. River Tiber didn't quite go on. He ended up getting beaten by his brother, Van Dijk, twice. I don't think that's going to happen with this guy. I would imagine that whatever it is they choose to do, whether it's the Prix Mornay in France over 6 or they go for a Phoenix Stakes, which makes more sense, although they've mentioned a couple of other horses for that race at the Curragh. There have been Coventry winners who've bombed out in the Phoenix Stakes over the years. I don't think that'll happen with this guy. He's not a horse I'd be backing for the Guineas, but he is different to Van Dijk in the sense that he's by Star Spangled Banner, so theoretically he should be able to progress and go on, but he just looks really together now and far ahead of everything he's going to be racing against. And so he's definitely want to be keeping on side. For all that he's going to be short in these Group 1s, I'd expect him to win the Phoenix Stakes. Maybe Dewhurst, maybe not, but they'll find another one for him, and I'd be surprised if he's not a multiple group winner by the end of the season.
Joe, would he be on your radar whatsoever for the Guineas, as Emmet has just alluded to, or were you of the same opinion?
No, I don't think he's a Guineas horse, but I didn't really fancy him before the race as well. But mind you, not a lot went right for me at all this week with regards to punting. But it was just unusual to me that the week before, it was very much up in the air who Ryan Moore was going to ride. I know it is with a lot of their horses, but we've generally got a good idea. We didn't have a clue. If we go back and look at the time, we didn't really have a clue who they were going to send and who they were going to run. And I find it interesting that the money didn't really start pouring onto him until sort of the morning of the race. I know he was already dropped up by Ryan Moore, and then he went from something like 10s to 7s, if you like. He didn't go until 7-2 until sort of the day. So perhaps he actually just beat a poor bunch in this. That would be my only worry. But at the same time, I like what Emmet said as well. He looks very ready. He's like physically gorgeous to look at, nice and strong. No reason why he shouldn't progress. So he's probably the best of a weak bunch, I think. But at the same time, he is the one that probably has the premise to go up and improve, with the experience as well. So,
no,
yeah, hard to knock.
No, fair enough. We'll swiftly move on to race 3. And if viewers of the podcast weren't happy enough with 2 winners on the bounce from our preview, then we made it 3 from 3 with American Affair, who was tipped in that preview at 25-1. Emmet, if you weren't overly if you didn't set your world alight with Docklands being a Group 1 winner, did you have similar feelings when American Affair stepped up and became a Group 1 winner, or do you think he's far more worthy of that title?
Well, you have to be unbiased, impartial, and professional when you're on the air on TalkSPORT. That's like obviously a journalistic requirement, as you would know, lads. You're in the racing media game long enough now. And yet I was full of praise for Jim Goldie, full of praise for Paul Mulrennan. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, you clown, how did you not go harder on this fella? How did you not back him properly? You fucking idiot, you going off back into Coolmore horse, you dope. I mean, he was such a big price, and this sprinting division is just rubbish. Like, they're just rubbish. They're all a bunch of really average. Even Andre Fabre said it about his horse Sagier that came out very late on the day on the Queen Elizabeth II Jubilee Stakes. Like, his comment was, they just all beat one another, so may as well take a shot at it. And the 5 furlong lot are fairly average as well. I put up Frosted Dawn actually on TalkSPORT 2 at 40s, and then she came in for a huge amount of support just before the off. But I love this performance from American Affair. I watched his run from the Curragh at Haydock the other day, and you could see in real time, it's like, oh God, Mulrennan's got that horribly wrong, because he goes to go left, goes to go right, just a little bit indecisive. Reminded me of Jamie Spencer's ride on One Cool Cat and the Coolmore Nunthorpe, which I'm still not over, which was just a nightmare ride. He just didn't know what to do, and by the time he makes his decision, they've gone. So you could definitely mark it up. I'm delighted for him that he's won. They're going to go to the Breeders' Cup. He might be really suited to the King George at Goodwood, because that's going to be a really fast 5 furlongs, although that race should really suit Asaphora if she can come back. But would you be backing him to back it up? I don't know. I don't know that I would be, but I'm really pleased to see him as a Group 1 winner, and I hope he can do it again.
Absolutely. Jamie, what did you make of it?
I think I texted you, Liam, into our group and said, I can't believe I didn't back American Affair.
Yeah.
I didn't forgive the bloody horse after the race at Haydock, and ended up backing a horse to finish 7th in that race in Haydock in Starla. Oh my God! But I got my money back on Star last time because they were playing first four and whatever. But I didn't tip anyone on our podcast. But I was a sneaky feeling for American with fair, but I just can't forgive horses after I have them a monster betting them in the Haydock last day.
You're not forgiving, Jamie. That's one thing I know about you.
Horses,
You're not forgiving with horses, certainly.
No, I don't forgive horses. I'm sorry, but look, that's the egg on my face. Funny note, Emmet's after mentioned the Breeders' Cup. Starlost won that at Delmar last year. Where is it this year?
Yeah, at Delmar again.
Is it at Delmar again?
Yeah.
We'll have a side bet, so I'm at Starlost will beat American Affair at Delmar in the 5 furlong sprint. But anyway, exactly what Emmet's saying. I think everyone is thinking about it, just singling out Emmet. What Emmet said is just tear a bad bunch. And the other thing is they're all going to meet again. What? They're all going to turn up again in the Spring Cup at Haydock in September again. And if they want to take out of the race, if you want to back it, 1 or 2 years ago, it was regional. And it's going to go off a stupid price to win that. Probably, you might get a decent price because they're a bunch of average horses for grade, but they just keep beating each other. But if you put my gun to the head, if you want a future winner for a sprint that way, the July Cup, would I back any of them for a July Cup? No. And that's another poor race going to happen if a few horses don't turn up. But if a lot of these horses turn up again, I would back regional at Haydock, yeah.
Joe, Emmet alluded to Goodwood there. I know when markets initially opened, I don't think the price was around for very long, but Paddy Power have dropped a bit of a bollock because Asphora opened at 8-1. Would you have been backing her at 8 for that race? She's now 11-4. Is she the one that you think that may go forward for that race and the one to take out? Was there anything else?
I think Asphora and Believe were both pretty disappointing, really. Sort of quite fancied them to both hit the frame and then anything else just filled the gaps. But American Affair was just brilliant, like no financial interest. You put them up in your column, Liam, as well, didn't you?
Yes.
So look, I was happy to cheer him on for you and for Jim Gold. He loved that. And look, he's now proven at group level. So who's to say he's going to stop improving? Because this was the day we found out if he could hold out that speed in the last sort of 100 yards and blimey, yeah, he can. So look, he's only a 5-year-old. He's probably coming into his prime now. So do not underestimate him the way I did last week, I suppose, really.
Absolutely. We'll move on then. St James Palace Stakes, obviously another Group 1. And Joe, you said this boy would not be beaten. I'll stick with you, mate. Is he the best 3-year-old on turf in the world?
Yeah, without doubt. Nothing's going to come close to him this season. Best 3-year-old over a mile, by a mile as well. So he finishes when they start, basically. That means effectively, doesn't it? So, but no, look, he's just like his dad, Kingman. He's very straightforward. It's a shame Kieran Schumacher's going to get a lot of stick forever on the basis that he got beat now in the Guineas. And I do still think that's a little bit harsh, actually. But it's nice to see that he's been getting much more sort of straightforward rides since he's been under sort of Colin Keane. And he's just far too good. He's going to beat Rosalian. He's going to beat Docklands. He's going to win the Sussex. There's not a better miler as a 4-year-old, I don't think, at the moment either. So, look, let's hope the Colt keeps winning and he's going to be some sire probably too at some point.
Were you disappointed at all with Ruling Court? Obviously, I know you're a big fan of the horse. You put him up and heavily backed him, didn't you, mate, for the Guineas? Yeah. And Hewitt was working away for a long way out, wasn't he? Just didn't seem to be going.
Yeah, well, I don't know why they ran him here and then they didn't want to run him in the Derby because of really similar sort of. I know obviously the trip's completely different. It's not the point really, but they were quite concerned about sort of ground and they just never sounded fully confident to me about Ruling Court since he won the Guineas, and it posed a little bit of a question. I was really disappointed. Obviously, I love the horse. Nice winner for me this year at big price, but. I wouldn't know what to do with him now, to be honest. Like the jury's out for him for me, really. After that, you've got to bounce back, and I don't think I'm going to forgive him at the moment, actually, as well. In Jamie's camp there.
Fair enough. Jamie, as Joe mentioned, he's very reminiscent of Kingman. Do you think that he's just best kept to the mile, or do you want to see him over 10 furlongs? And if he does step up to the 10, do you think he'll be just as difficult to beat there as he is over the mile?
But how's Ombudsman though? By the way, 128. How did they give Ombudsman 128 and
he got £11 for that victory, didn't he?
Yeah,
insane.
In the Prince of Wales.
And then Field of Gold got 126, 124. Just obscene, isn't it?
Yes, he got £3 for that victory. Yeah, he went up £3 as opposed to 11 Ombudsman. Yeah.
So what is it? 126 is he now field of gold then?
That's because my next statement is going to upset a laddie. Henri Matisse is no good. That's why.
Okay.
I watched Emmet Kennedy's face. He's steaming. He's like a kettle. Henri Matisse needs the way the actually. Hold on, no, actually, I'll make a statement here. Henri Matisse did give Ombudsman a race in the Prince of Wales. The ridiculous pace they went in that race, because he'd have loved that pace, and that's what all jokes aside, that's what Henri Matisse needs. He needs end-to-end gallop, and that's your only chance he's ever going to have a chance to beat Field of Gold, and that's in all seriousness. Because if you go slow and make it slightly into half pace all the way to line, Field of Gold will eat you up all the time. Has he a chance of reversing the form in the Sussex? I don't think so, honestly.
Not a hope in hell.
Not a hope in it. Unless you get a rattling fast pace down the hill, he might have some chance against Field of Gold then. He might get a bit closer, but he needs fast pace. And it showed for a really fast paced French 2000 Guineas, which is very unlikely for a French 2000 Guineas. And it was a great ride by Ryan Moore without a question of a doubt, because I backed Jonquil that day and he beat me. But the third ruling card, you know what you're going to do. Apparently, now he's going to the Eclipse on Saturday on the mile and 2. Would I back him for an Eclipse? Oh God, no. It's a hot enough Eclipse at this present moment in time. There's a lot of horses actually jocked up for it. So I don't know what you're going to do with ruling court. And exactly what Joe says, they were never really 100% confident with his breeding, which he should have, in my opinion. But they were just afraid of a drop of rain that time in the Derby. I just don't understand it. Just give the horse a go. But would he have beaten Lambert? Probably not.
Fair enough. We might as well club the two together and we'll come back round to the boys to get their opinions. So we're moving into Wednesday anyway. So Emmet, obviously £11 was given to Ombudsman. Obviously, first of all, what did you make of the Field of Gold performance? I think we're unanimous in thinking that he's a bit of a superstar. If he were to step up to the 1 mile 2, who do you think would come out on top?
I hope they don't go 10 furlongs, but they almost certainly are going to, because he's a brilliant miler. And every time John Gosden talks about him, he talks about him like he's Kingman. He keeps referencing Kingman. They didn't try Kingman over 10 furlongs. So I don't know. I understand Jumpment International, you want to win it as the sponsors, but also have to run the horse in the races that you think he's going to be best at. I took him on in this race. I took him on with Henri Matisse. Jamie knows this well. And I thought that race was going to set up perfectly for him. And it did. It set up perfectly for Henri Matisse. And Field of Gold still crushed him. You laughed at him. He's the best 3-year-old on turf. I think the best 3-year-old is probably Sovereignty, but they'll never meet because he's on dirt. But he's absolutely the best on turf. He's definitely the best miler in training. I can't see anything really troubling him as long as he stays sound and he goes to races that make sense for him. Sussex Stakes is his for the taking. If they wanted to go for the Prix Jacques Lamarwa, he'll take that as well. He'd take all the beating in the QE2. If you stepped him up to 10 furlongs for the Juddmonte, I think things could get tricky because he's got such brilliant pace. I don't know if 10 furlongs around York is going to be ideal for him. I certainly don't know if 10 furlongs around Leopardstown would be ideal for him, especially with the Aidan O'Brien battalion to be going to take on. But right now, over a mile, there's nothing to touch him. There's nothing for them to worry about. Henri Matisse would have won, I think, 6 out of 10 runnings of this race normally. That's the mark he's run to. So he is a good horse. Jamie's talking absolute nonsense there, but that's all right. And that's for ruling court. Like, there's a quote from Charlie Appleby afterwards, and he was saying, like, William Buick got off him and said he wouldn't have won a Guineas. Doesn't really know how. And that's what leads to the confusion. Like, how the hell did he get beaten in the 2000 Guineas Field of Gold? Because he's clearly just much, much better than everything else. If ruling court does go on Saturday, this is becoming a really bizarre campaign if they run him on Saturday, unless he wins. Because why did you put him out of the Derby then? Now it doesn't make any sense to have done that. You've trained him for the race. You've taught him to relax, to stay a mile 4. The ground hadn't gone, and you pull him out on the day. You run him 10 days later in the St. James's Palace Stakes, and now you want to throw him into a 10 furlong eclipse? I don't get that.
It just doesn't feel like the ideal preparation, does it? It's not really giving him ample time.
But it's a complete afterthought.
Completely.
That's the problem, isn't it?
Both are.
You don't give them a smooth campaign. Then
they don't know what to do with him rushing from here to here. Exactly.
And they don't know if he's going to stay yet either. So how do you ride him? Do you ride him like the best horse, or do you hold him up a little bit and try and get him for pace, which is probably unwise with who's in the field? It's just all of a sudden I'm just.
How much would you all read into early jockey bookings at this? Because obviously Buick's already jocked up, isn't he? On for the weekend.
The reason Buick will be jocked up straight away, though, because even before the Guineas, the only entry that Godolphin even had in the Derby was rule in court. So any horse from 10 furlongs up to 12 furlongs, it was always going to be him. Ever since Ancient Wisdom sort of came out, he was the only one they'd had entered anywhere. So I think they know he's the best they've got, but whether he's good enough to beat this lot, it's certainly up for debate now, isn't it? The jury feels out after that last run. Look, interesting. Look, I think Ombudsman has been given a mark of 128. And Matt is hardly reliable. See the Fire as a filly running in her first group one against the boys. And Los Angeles underperformed, and Ombudsman went off at 7-1. I just don't buy it at all. What I am okay with, though, is the fact that he is rated 128 and Field of Gold is 126. There's no way that they will run Field of Gold in the Juddmonte now, because John Gosden trains them both. He'll want one for both. You wouldn't if Field of Gold was a 128 horse and Ombudsman was 126. I can see them stepping up to a Juddmonte and having to go. There's no point now. They've got a higher rated horse at the trip for Juddmonte, and they've also got the best three-year-old miler on turf. So the only good thing about Ombudsman, I'll get that out, being above him in the racing is simply the fact that it worked out better for the race planning going forward this season.
That rating of 128, Jamie, will stay on Ombudsman. Has the handicapper lost his marbles?
Yeah, 100% has lost his marbles, yeah. Exactly what Joe said. Emmet is very unreliable, but now Keats finishing second. No, it's two good runs, obviously. Second in Tattersall's Gold Cup, second here. I think the third horse is going to try the 1.5 miles in the Yorkshire Oaks, and she looks like she'll get it after winning the Middleton there during the Dante meeting. See the Fire. I will be back at her. She's probably, I don't even know what price she is for the Yorkshire Oaks. She should win that. Los Angeles, I just don't understand the run. They just went way too quick. I don't know what was going on there, to be honest with you. And then there's a huge criticising of the jockey of Factor Cheval, which I don't know what he was on about, to be honest with you. He was smoking something. But anyway, I just don't know what to make of the race, because they went a stupid pace, Liam. And look, they've based it on the pace of the race. And that's what the mean. 128 compared to 126 Field of Gold, I'd have him a bit less than that and have it the opposite way around, if to be truth be told. I suppose it's on exactly what Joe says, on to the Juddmonte. Could I see a horse beating him in the Juddmonte? That I don't know. And who to beat him with? That I don't know at this present moment of time. That'll tell you that 10 furlong division could be like the sprint division. They'll keep beating each other. And that's just my opinion at the moment. But the third horse is the one to take out, because I think she'll win the Yorkshire Oaks, yeah.
I mean, you didn't really touch on this race too much when last mentioned. Is there anything that you wanted to add? You got any opinions on, obviously, the comments that came out with regards to the French horses Jamie's just mentioned, or anything with regards to Los Angeles and his performance?
Yeah, a couple of things. I was talking to somebody who's much smarter than me and has a very, very fancy algorithm. And the in-running odds of Los Angeles after 2 furlongs were 2-1. The computer was telling them the true odds were 350-1 because of the pace he was going. So he laid the balls off him and made an absolute fortune. And well done to him for doing that. After 4 furlongs, Los Angeles was traveling faster than they were going in the Queen Mary Stakes. So he would have been in front of True Love and all the rest of the Queen Mary. So he had no chance in this. Absolutely no chance whatsoever. They've gone a completely insane gallop. Just draw a line through it. Forget about that. It was such a tough race. He's out. He's not going to be seen again until the Pre-Foy or Irish Champion, whichever one it is they decide to go for. But he's going to. It wasn't the intention to miss the King George, but that's how it's going to pan out now. They've driven the two ears off him. So the fact that the favorite is completely underperformed, the fact that Factor Cheval, who is a pretty consistent performer, was given an insane ride as well. This isn't a true race. Ombudsman probably won. He was the slowest horse in the race. If you go through the data, he was literally the slowest horse in the race. And Buick managed to find every bit of trouble he possibly could, which probably worked to the horse's advantage, because that meant he couldn't go until he finally gets into the clear and everything else is a spent force.
Absolutely.
This is an insane rating for him to be given. And I think he'll get duffed in the Eclipse. I'm not sure if it's going to be Saucy or Camille Pizarro, but I'm pretty certain one of them will beat him. I'm going to take him on anyway. And fair enough if there's egg on my face and he goes and wins. I wouldn't be 100% certain that because Ombudsman is rated what he is, that means Field of Gold won't go for the Juddmonte. Juddmonte are really keen to go for that race. And you know that because of what Gosden is saying. I think Gosden is laying the foundations for, I don't want to do this. Like, this is a miler. We don't need to go further. Now, he's mentioned it a couple of times about going up and trip, but he was talking about that after the Curragh. Since he won at Royal Ascot, it's been a different tone from him. I think he wants to keep him to a mile. But because the owners sponsor that race and they don't really have anything, Kalpana, maybe. But I think she needs softer ground and her main target is the Arc, which she's a big player for still. Ombudsman's going to be interesting. I'm hoping he gets beaten this weekend. don't have anything against the horse, but it's just I'll be backing against him. And this was just a bonkers race that you can draw a line through, I think.
There you are. So there'll be plenty of value. If you're in agreement with them, there'll be plenty of value in behind Ombudsman for this weekend. And no doubt we'll be reviewing the weekend racing later this week, so that we may have some selections to take him on along with Emmet. The other race that we'll touch on the Wednesday, which we've referred to her on a couple of occasions. But Jamie, I'll start with you because another winner that you put up on the preview show and at a decent price as well.
Another one.
So another one. 8, 10
well, it
to
won't
1,
be Joe doing it anyway.
True Love obviously won the
That's
Queen's
True Love for you there, Joe.
No, mate, there's no hiding place for me after last week, honestly.
Yeah, look, exactly, Liam, as you said, I was confident, more and more confident when Arctic Gestad won. True Love obviously had form with Lady of Man. There's a couple of horses that we mentioned on Emmet's show yesterday. Beautify to come to beat Lady of Man is one to go forward maybe in that division. But True Love, exactly, fast run 5 furlongs is what she needed. I haven't really touched on the form. I haven't really watched it before because I was so happy True Love won. I must look at myself during the week. But yeah, she's definitely a decent horse going forward. And 9 to 4 SP was even more sweeter. So yeah, great winner and falling on from Gestad. So I was very happy, yeah.
Yeah, a bucket load of value as well, Jamie. Fair play to you. Anything to add, Joe?
No, the second was interesting, though. Flowerhead for Charlie Clover. I really like a good sort of 2-year-old filly. She was 100 to 1, got a really nice ride from Colin Keane. I suppose the main piece I liked about her was the fact that she was in a group of 9, like down the middle of the track. She managed to beat them. It's always nice, isn't it, when you're on a sort of, she was a 2-year-old, but she knew her job and did well to beat all of those 9, and obviously the rest of the field bar True Love. It might not have been a fluke as well because she's by Starman, who's starting to produce some really nice horses and backing quite a lot of his 2-year-olds at the moment this season. So she was first out of 9 in that group, second of 23 overall, 100 to 1 for Ammo Racing. Not much went right for them, really, but that was a nice one to take out of it. Flowerhead. Could be no fluke.
There we are. Another one for people to add to the notebooks from Joe then from Royal Ascot Week. Emmet, much more to add on this race? Anything else in behind or just your general opinion on True Love and her performance?
I thought Spicy Marg was asked to go a little bit too soon and I keep an eye on her. She's a very, very good filly, Liam. She was really highly regarded before she won her debut at Newmarket. It was a small field race. The Godolphin horse was a little bit disappointing, but she won it well. She was well fancied for this. I think Michael Bell had some horses run really well. She's won. I'd take her out of it. She's the only one I want to take out of it, really, aside from the winner, True Love. It's pretty extraordinary. That's Aidan's first win in the race. Pretty extraordinary. She breaks her maiden in it as well. She's a proper sprinting filly. Wouldn't be so sure about her progressing next year as a no-name ever, but she'll surely win more races this season.
There you are. Another one for the notebook then. Fill in the pipeline, hopefully, for future winners. We'll move on to the Thursday, the Norfolk Stakes, Charles Darwin. Now, either I need my eyes tested or I know nothing at all. I thought he was in trouble at one point, but Jesus, he went away with ease, and he was a comfortable winner in the end. Joe, did you think he was in trouble, or was I going mad or watching the wrong thing?
This is just an absolute machine of a horse, this is. I didn't see the trouble myself, but that being said, you are not the only person I've heard say that as well. So it could just be contrast and opinions. But I didn't actually think he was in trouble at any time. I just think this is an absolute superstar. Probably the horse that's got me the most excited so far this year, out of the youngsters especially. He's by a dam, and I can't think of her name, but he is by Can't even think now. Lost it. I think he's by No Nay Never. But anyway, he's out of a dam.
Murren.
I can't. Murren, that's it. And she has had 4 foals, I believe. So he has 3 full brothers. One of them is Blackbeard, who won 6 of his 8 races. He won the pre-morning, the Middle Park as a 2-year-old. There's a couple others there as well that they've done a little bit of winning. I can't think who, but look, really, really well bred. No surprise to see this horse excel. I don't know if he's going to be a Guineas horse, for example. But until the end of time, I am backing Charles Darwin and Field of Gold wherever they go, regardless. So, yeah, machine, absolute machine. This thing.
Emmet, what did you make? Do you think we'll actually see more from him and the best of him the further he goes in trip?
Ooh, I don't know about that.
No,
maybe 6, Liam. I was in agreement with you though. I thought for a little bit he looked. Oh, geez, I don't know if this guy's going to get it done. I'd taken Denise's super boost, so I was keeping.
That's why.
I think we all did.
Thanks, Denise. She got a bit of it back, but
she always tunes in, Denise. She always tunes in.
Of course, yeah, big fan of all of her shows. I thought he was in trouble the last day when he was 14-1 on. It's funny how you can look at.
He was though, but that was more like traffic problems, though, wasn't it? Rather than, do you not think? Rather than it being himself, maybe. I might be too forgiving, Emma, as well. At the same time, I might just be very generous, but
I think he might just be a little bit lethargic, and then is naturally brilliant and has all of that incredible talent, but he just has a little bit of difficulty putting it all together, perhaps. But in the end, like, he's the only horse. I know that the big numbers, sort of the horses drawn high, were the ones who were benefiting in the early stages, but he was the only one drawn high in the first 3, not the first 4 or 5. Yeah, he was. So he's overcome, if there was a bias that it was being turned around, he's overcome that. The fact that he just blazed the trail and burned them off as easily as he did was really impressive. I love him. I think he's a superstar. The clock watchers were all raving about him from the time before the previous race, where I thought he was in trouble and I didn't think he looked that good that day when he beat Cardiff by the Sea. She ran a massive race, obviously, in the Queen Mary, so that had been advertised. But this was a huge performance. The fact that he's a brother to Blackbeard, they didn't keep going with him. He had a small injury. He could have come back as a 3-year-old, but they went, no, it's a stud. That would tell me that maybe this is not a horse that you're going to be seeing much of as a 3-year-old, but he's going to do serious damage this season. And if they were to roll the dice in the Coolmore Nunthorpe, that would be fascinating. And Wayne Lorden could do the weight.
Just wins whatever he wants. He does, honestly. I just think
he'd be a point and shoot job in the Nunthorpe. Wayne Lorden just have to decide when he wants to go, and he'd win easily, especially against that shower.
Yeah, definitely. And he's only a 2-year-old. He's literally a baby. Like, anything he does now is a bonus. He's going to be. I really am willing to put a neck on. I think he's a superstar. This thing, absolutely bred to be it as well. So no secrets.
Jaime, anything to add?
No, I see he's top price 72 for Nunthorpe. With Triple Eight Sport or something like that. Does anyone have a Triple Eight Sport account? We can back it now. Any horse that does sub 11 furlongs in the last 2 furlongs is a serious weapon. Like, and I thought he looked in trouble, but when he looks in trouble, then he goes again, and that's the sign of a wicked, fast, very good horse. And exactly what Emma's saying. I think they will go. There was a horse of the Coolmores, Emma. What was the name of the horse? Was it an American or a French horse that went to the Nunthorpe, was beaten, wasn't it? As a 2-year-old at the last one.
Oh God.
I can see it. Yeah, because I'm back to fucking thing. But anyway, I think the Nunthorpe is. I think they'll go. Yeah, it'll come to me. But I think it'll be the Nunthorpe, Liam. I think they'll have no choice but to go for it, and he'll get all the allowance, 2-year-old. And it's exactly what Emmett's saying. It's just point and shoot and put him where you like, and he'll win the Nunthorpe.
No, fair enough. From 5 furlongs to 20 furlongs, the Gold Cup. Stay with you then, Jaime, in that case. Trawlerman, what did you make of this? Obviously, the news came out a few weeks prior with regards to Kyprios being retired and whatnot. But was he a worthy debutant to take the crown, obviously, with him being retired?
Just goes to prove that Kyprios is one of the all-time greats, Liam, really, to be honest with you, after that. Trawlerman was beaten well by him last year. It was a great ride, I thought it was. He just ran the stamina out of Illinois. I was disappointed with Illinois. Back to each way Ante-Post, got my money back, but I thought he was better than that. But it was just a great ride, and he is now. If Kyprios doesn't come back, the staying superstar Trotterman at the moment. But I suppose Illinois will go against French Master in the Goodwood Cup, and we'll know then where both of them are at when it comes to the staying division and onto the stairs in the Champions Day at Ascot. Sorry. Against Trotterman again over a different trip, obviously over 2 miles. But yeah, what more can you say? It was a great ride and fair play to him. But it just goes to show you that Kyprios is still a great horse, because no matter how many times Trotterman will try, it won't beat Kyprios at the top 11 when it matters.
No, absolutely. Before that news came out, Emmett, the lads were evidently on, because that Illinois price absolutely plummeted in, but he didn't quite manage to get his head in front. Were you slightly disappointed with him, or is Trolleman just a far better horse and you can't really throw much stick at Illinois for his performance?
Whatever are you suggesting there, Liam? You're not suggesting that the Coolmore posse would be getting stuck into a horse in the Ante-Post market based on training? Would you?
You can interpret my comments however you wish, Mr. Kennedy.
No, they would never do any such a thing to try and get one over on those pesky bookmakers. Yeah, I'd say they were a little bit disappointed with him. And look, there wasn't much confidence in Illinois on the day. I was very confident that he was going to win this race, because I thought they're all right. Trolleman sets a good standard, but he'll surely beat him. Jeez, Trolleman was brilliant. I'm not even sure Kyprios would have beaten him. He probably would have, but he would have really laid it down to Kyprios. That's how good he was from the front. And to be fair, John Gosden gave an interview to our colleague The Moose on TalkSPORT 2 just before the race, where he said, The Moose was saying to him, you got all these young horses coming at you. You got the French horse, you've got Aidan's horse. How do you feel about the young guns taking you on? He said, they'll have to stay. We're going to go out, we'll make all. And if they come past us, fair enough. And none of them could. The French horse was obliterated. Illinois ran bravely. I don't think he stayed. I don't know how you fix that. You can't really inject that much stamina into him. I know Trolleman will be 9 next year, so it's not going to be easy for him, but who's coming through? Unless there's something that Aidan O'Brien can dust off of the shelf between now and then, that you can just come in as which you probably will be able to, as the ready-made replacement. Or if Illinois does take a significant step forward, I will just add this briefly. The prep race for this for Aidan O'Brien in the past few years has been the Vintage Crop and what's the other race, Jamie? There's 2 races, the Navan race and the Leopardstown race. Saddlebag and the Vintage Crop. They're the 2 races they go for normally, and Kyprios has obviously gone for those. So to be fair to Illinois, he'd only had the 1 prep run. So if you wanted to be the fat chick in the milkshake store clutching at straws, that could be your excuse, that he's only had the 1 run, and so maybe he wasn't fully conditioned. But I think that might just be a little bit of reaching. And it'll be interesting to see what Jan Bruegel does this year, because he's won a St. Ledger, so he's devalued as a stallion. Unless he can do things like win the King George and the Arc, and then you somehow make him a commercial sire. If they keep him going and he becomes the stayer next season and he can stay, then he'd be interesting in Trolleman. But right now, I don't see anything that can beat Trolleman over this trip.
Has the King of the Jumps got anything lurking in it?
Not at that level of class, but it's a good question. It's a good question. Like Absurd can't do it.
No.
Where would Sober have finished if he'd run in the Gold Cup? He probably would have been 3rd.
Yeah, quite possibly, yeah. Yeah, good point.
That's a fair question. Dust off Hurricane Fly, he'll win it.
Trolleman, the Gold Cup, much to add?
No, not really. Just too good. I think Illinois stayed, by the way, personally. I just don't think he's classy enough to beat better stayers at this trip. Yeah, I don't see it. I don't see Tumar 4 being anything like his bag. He comes off the bridle quite soon. He's rouched in along. Yeah, I think they've got this wrong with Illinois. I think they need to drop him back in trip now. Wasn't campaigned this way, I suppose, this season, so didn't necessarily get a clear run at things, but Trolleman was far too good. You're not going to get much improvement out of Illinois, I don't think, over that trip. If Ryan Moore couldn't do it this time when he was primed and ready to go, I suppose, yeah, I'd be concerned about his future. I think there'll be something else they'll try. Maybe even Jan Bruegel, they'll try get him up in trip perhaps or something, I don't know.
I agree.
Yeah.
Fair enough. We'll move into the Friday then, and I suppose there was a couple of storylines here, and the only negativity that I heard about Royal Ascot all week was just with regards to the watering of the track prior to the Friday. Emmet, I'll start with you. We'll look at the Albany Stakes and Venetia's Sun, obviously the winner of that Group 3. Was it more coincidental? Was there a clear kind of flip in track bias? And did that make it far more difficult, or did you have to get a handle on it quickly as a punter, kind of early into Friday's card, do you feel?
This is off the top of my head, but I'm pretty certain on the day on TalkSPORT I was saying the last few years you've had the high numbers dominate, and then you come to the Friday and it's actually the low numbers that dominate, and that this could flip. And I need to be Russian disinformation to fact checked on that one, but I'm pretty sure that's what we were talking about on the day, because I was talking up Venetian Sun. For all that there was a lot of fear about the Ballydoyle horses, obviously, because they were crushing everything with the exception of the Windsor Castle. Thoughts with Eve Johnson Houghton. I agree with her, by the way. That should not be switched to a 6 furlong race. But anyway, that's a conversation for another show. But obviously, Carl Burke was very, very concerned about the fact that they were in stall 1. And then one of the reasons why I was pretty confident about the horse on TalkSPORT is because, well, first of all, I'd spoken to Carl Burke a few weeks ago, and I asked him, you told us a few years ago Elite Status was your 2-year-old to follow, and he ended up winning multiple group races. So who's your one juvenile for the team to follow? Without hesitation, he says Venetian Sun. There's no mention of Zelina, no mention of anybody else. The only one he wanted to talk about was Venetian Sun. She hadn't even run yet. She hadn't run at Carlisle yet. And then on the day, she drifts out to 9-1, hits 10s, and suddenly she's instantly back into 6-1. So Tony Bloom must have had a right few quid, allegedly. As in terms of the draw, it's very unsatisfactory. Like, I love Royal Ascot. It's fantastic. And I think the people there do an incredible job. It's pretty difficult. The only way that any of us could argue, and if we turn this into a Cheltenham Festival preview right now, I guarantee you we'd get far more engagement. That's Cheltenham has that. Cheltenham has the public's imagination. Everybody wants to talk about the Cheltenham Festival straight away. But Royal Ascot gets the crowds and it gets the viewers and it gets the international interest. It's flawless in that side of things. But there was something very, very odd with that track on the first few days. And then I think they, as they have done in previous years, Liam, they've tried to course correct that. And then that's what they've done. Don't know how, but they did. At least that's how the results would pan out. That being said, she's a good horse. She's a very, very talented horse. Joe mentioned the Starmans. Everywhere you look, there's a Starman winning. Yeah, it's like the Wootton Bassets. They're all just... And we need to be alive to this stuff. You know, I know that not everybody's into pedigree analysis. That's something you need to just be aware of, that these horses are flying it. Whereas the St. Mark's Basilicas are probably going to develop and be more mature types later as the season develops. These ones are ready now. So be keeping an eye on these horses. She looks very, very classy. Tony Bloom thinks she's a Guineas horse. Who are we to disagree with him?
Perfect. Joe, do you have much more to add on this race and your opinion, I suppose, on the track kind of switching bias, if we were going to call it that?
Yeah, look, I think you should always start a meeting how you want to finish a meeting, unless you have to rain. But we have no reason, unless you have to water, but just no reason to. Just leave it as it is. It's not really helping the punters either.
Causes confusion, Joe.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Because you go, is it really making that much difference? And then another 2-3 races go by and you go, okay, well, it is now. And then we've lost a few races and opportunities. And similar with like draws and things, people have exactly changed their mind and go away from the
sorry to interrupt you, Joe, but people probably punt strategically as well. And there may be particular races where they have a greater amount of points on. And race 1, Friday, you could be doing an awful lot of dough without the knowledge that you
need. Yeah. Exactly. Look, like, the only thing we ever ask within this sport, regardless of what area we're looking at, is just a bit of consistency with what goes on. And they don't update the going quick enough as well for it to be punter friendly enough, to be honest with you too. So that could be quite misleading. You might pick up the race and post and it say good to firm, and then realise they've watered overnight that morning and suddenly it's good to soft in places, whatever you want. It's got to be transparent, hasn't it? Interesting what Emmet said there about value. Interesting to know what you think, Liam, because you were there last week. The way I looked at it, I've sort of 4 highlights. Good weather, obviously can't help that, but it's a bonus. Better value than Cheltenham. Sun tickets are about £90. I know you paid a little bit extra for a premium, which got you a little bit of a bonus there. A few bits, access to other areas, perhaps, did it?
Yeah, so I don't mind sharing and being completely transparent. It was £225 a ticket. I perhaps probably wouldn't have chosen to pay it myself, but my brother had organised it, so I obliged. And for that, there were food stalls within a particular given area where there was more seating, easily accessible to get to a bar. It was evidently sponsored by a particular lager manufacturer there, so it was all their brollies, and their bar was all obviously decked out in their logo and whatnot. And then there were food stalls, pizzas, tacos, Lebanese kind of food trucks, and you could have as much as you want throughout the whole day. At no point did it run out, and it just made the day easy, and you had a base really to operate from. And I thought it was very good for perhaps for people who don't want to be involved in huge crowds, perhaps people who aren't great on their feet, or for somebody who's perhaps a little bit elderly, especially in that heat, who wants the guarantee of some sort of umbrella and shade from the 30-degree sun. And value for money overall for a full day out doing that. We got there at 11, left at 6:30, 7:15. I thought it wasn't too bad for the price paid, and certainly ate my body weight in pizza to get me money's worth as well, mate.
Yeah.
Was the food included?
Say again, sorry, Emmet.
Was the food included?
Yes, all that food's included. So you can go up to those food trucks as frequently or as ill-frequently as you want to.
I'd have walked out of there like the size of a barrel. Jesus Christ.
I'm sure there's areas where you could take packed lunch and things like that as well, which I thought was a bit interesting and certainly different to Cheltenham. The other thing was there was only 2 races with less than 8 runners as well, which is obviously good. Loads of big prize places, loads of different trainers and owners winning the lot. Okay, Waxman had a few, but they didn't clean up the whole stage. And then to top it off, even Willie Mullins had 2 winners as well. So I see why a lot of people.
Sorry, Joe. The point to make is Willie Mullins had 2 winners. He didn't have 10. Aidan O'Brien didn't have 10 winners. He had 5, the same as John and Thady Gosden. John and Thady Gosden walk away with the top trainer award. Like, if essentially what you're alluding to is which is better, the Cheltenham Festival or Royal Ascot. And the only reason that you would say Cheltenham is because you're a diehard National Hunt fan. Of course. That's in your head, and you understand that form, and you're excited about it, and you take the week off for it, and you listen to all the podcasts building up to it. But the reality is, and for the last few years, this has been true, Royal Ascot is better. And it has been better for a long time. And actually, the success of Royal Ascot is detrimental to Cheltenham because the Jockey Club can't help but look at that and go, well, we're bigger and we can have a 5-day festival. And they tried to do it. They tried to have a 5-day Cheltenham Festival. And that's why there's so many races at Cheltenham, is that they've been actively working towards making it a 5-day meeting. And slowly but surely, it's crumbled around them. And now they have to realize, oh, shit, what have we done? But they don't want to undo it now.
I think one of my biggest takeaways, sorry, Joe, just from being there present on the Saturday, was it's one of the few occasions I've attended a huge race meeting like that, unlike Cheltenham, where I felt like a customer and not a consumer. There were moments where, for example, my girlfriend spoke to somebody on the way out, and all they had was a little kind of pin on their kind of lapel or whatnot, and it just said Royal Ascot 2025. And I think it was a 200-year anniversary, so she kind of got a race card from the day and just asked where she could get one. The bloke took it off and gave it to her. It's something as simplistic as that, and I thought that's a brilliant touch. They were so polite. You weren't treated, as I say, as a consumer. You were treated as a customer from the moment you entered the gates, where they tried to usher everyone through, till the end of the day when that happened to Georgia. And I thought, that's something so simple that could be changed quite easily through training and effective management of a racecourse.
Just very briefly, that's a really good thing to hear. But I've done Cheltenham Previews at Ascot, and I have nothing but high praise for them. Like, they're such nice people. They really run a great event. They were very impressed with the crowd that turned up as well, and please God, we'll get to do something like that with them again, hopefully with you boys as well. We'll try and drag the gravy train to Ascot, shall we? But like, I've been very, very critical of a number of race courses, and I don't take any pleasure in it. I don't feel good about it, but I also really admire the people who then engage with me afterwards or invite me to a race course to talk to them, because they understand. Look, the most valuable, you guys know this, you do a very successful podcast. The most valuable commodity of the modern era is authenticity. If you're not authentic with your audience, they're not going to watch you. And you can look at a few different horse racing podcasts and you'll see their numbers have declined because they're not authentic. That's what it's about. And that doesn't mean that I'm going to be right about everything. And everyone knows that. You're going to get things wrong. But on this, you have to be getting value for money. And when I interviewed Nick Smith for both the Final Furlong and for TalkSPORT, he's the big executive at Ascot who's responsible for bringing all of the major international contenders there. He made a very, very interesting point when I made it like a very subtle joke about that in Cheltenham. And he said, well, he wasn't throwing shade, but he kind of was at the same point. I don't think he did it intentionally. He just made a very interesting point, which was during the pandemic, which nobody wants to remember, but during the pandemic, when they introduced those extra races and then decided to keep them, they specifically only introduced races that would not take from the existing races they have at Ascot. And so those 7 races per day now work because none of them take from another race. And that is not what Cheltenham did. The Mayor's Hurdle, you can talk all you want about how much you love it. It has weakened the Champion Hurdle, and it obviously weakens the Stayers Hurdle. The Mayor's Chase could potentially do this very same thing. The Ryanair clearly has weakened the Gold Cup and the Champion Chase. These are races that are, these are races with prestige and history, and you're weakening them to introduce new races. And then you've got people who are quite frankly gaslighting the media. People in the media gaslighting their audience. Say, well, maybe we should get rid of the Baring Bingham. Why the hell would we get rid of the Baring Bingham when that's a race of prestige and history to keep the Albert Bartlett, the crisp race? No, that doesn't make any sense. There's so many. There's so many things that are just wrong at Cheltenham, and there's very few people who are actually prepared to just call it out. And then there's even fewer people who are prepared to really look the Jockey Club in the face and go, guys, you have the best product of all. You have the product that the fans genuinely want to engage with. And there are fans literally flying to Spain to watch your racing for 4 days because they would rather do that than pay the extortionate prices it is to go to Cheltenham and then pay for everything at the track. And if Liam can pay 225 quid, which for some people is going to be absurd, but if you're paying 225 quid for then a race day experience where you don't feel like a consumer, you feel like a fan and you're treated as such, and you get rewarded with things that make sense, then that's something that Cheltenham should be looking at too. And I don't know if they can. I really don't know if they can.
Yeah, whether there's the will is, I suppose, is another argument. But yeah, I completely agree, Emmet.
I'll just make one point on that before we move on. I'll do it briefly. I think is exactly what the whole lot of you saying, and I think all the three of you agree with as fans of National Hunt Racing. And I think you'll agree with me, the three of you, and I'd be shocked if you didn't. The National Hunt Racing fan is taken for granted.
Yes.
I've seen it for years. I'm a fan since when I was 5 foot tall. But anyway, we're taken for granted. And the only way I can say it, look, the argument goes, and I see it around social media. I'm sorry, I'm bigging up my own country. I'm bigging up the festival that I love to go to watch, and we were all there in February. But look at the way how the Dublin Racing Festival has started and expanded and brings everybody back from the UK, the value for money every single year. It keeps going on, and Cheltenham need to look at that. I know it's 2 days, and people say, oh, it's just a winning monet's benefit. People still come.
Yeah.
And Cheltenham have to look at that because I know it's 4 days. It's different. It's more expensive. I understand that. And Dublin Race Festival is only 2 days. But you can see the difference. You can see the atmosphere. It's just better. I love it. I go to it every year. It doesn't make a difference to me. It shows that I haven't been to Cheltenham Festival since 2011. My first was 2003. That shows you that it doesn't bother me. I'd rather come over for the November meeting, be comfortable. Do you know what I mean? That's a huge difference. Do you know what I mean? That's what I want. I know Dublin Race Festival, there's good crowds there, but there's plenty of room there for a big, huge one-stander. I know that. But they're going to have to look at something like that because I think exactly what Liam did, the racecourse experience, they're pricing the people out of it coming over from this side, I think anyway. And they need to look at that because we are, compared to the flat crowd, unfortunately, we're taken for granted. They'll go to that, no problem. That's what they pick every year. We'll up the price up. And people will just say no. Because remember last year, when the last point I'll make, when the cross country was taken out, my cousin was there and he said it was the worst crowd on Wednesday I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And they couldn't even get out of the car park.
With
all the money,
the muck, the cars got
all
stuck.
the money they've extortioned out of people for years. The Cheltenham Festival, they still have grass in the car park.
And people had to pay, was it 20 or 40 quid to the farmer with the tractor?
Yeah,
to get gold out of it.
Yeah, so they need to look at it. That's what
Lizzie Kelly was doing commentary.
The Cheltenham Festival has. We even derail the Royal Ascot Review show.
Exactly.
About those 4 days.
Put it into the episode description. I guarantee it'll get more listeners.
That's
the thing. Yeah. Cheltenham gets more engagement than Royal Ascot does.
Yeah, even mention it, Joe, at the end. Cheltenham gets a mention in July.
Definitely. Yeah, of course. Always.
Getting back to the Albany briefly here, Liam.
You mean the Triumph Hurdle Trial?
Yeah, Triumph Hurdle Trial. Yeah. Bring the lads to get one out of France. But Venetian Sun was a very good winner, I will say, and it was favoured nearly all after its debut. Carlisle was actually favoured for the race for a long time, and I went off it. But it's the horse that was in third is intriguing for collateral form line in Valentina. I mentioned a horse there that was fourth in the commentary and absolutely stuffed that horse, and then finished fourth on debut and finished fourth in the commentary. But it's the horses that Valentina beat the last day. you can see it, and I mentioned it. We all mentioned it last night. That Beautify then went on to beat Lady Oman, but it's the 5th horse in the race. Valentino on the main is the one everyone should be looking at. It's a horse of Aidan O'Brien's called Composing, because that is the best filly Aidan O'Brien has for the future of the rest of the season. And we'll move on.
Well said. Well said.
Right, so we will move on. Time for Sandals. Very apt, given the weather last week, was the winner of the Commonwealth Cup. Joe, start with yourself. What did you make of this performance? Was there much else that people should be having on their radars from that race? And what did you make of the winner?
No interest. Didn't fancy anything in the race. Good for Harry Eustace, that would do.
Okie doke. Emmet, have you got more of an opinion than Joe has?
Yeah, I was of the opinion that Shadow of Light is a questionable horse in that I think he got very, very lucky to win the Middle Park. He was going to run in the Mill Reef Stakes and they took him out. He was there at Newbury on the day and they took him out on the day because of the ground. And then they wheel him into that race a week later and Aidan O'Brien was adamant the Whistle Jacket hadn't run his race, but everybody got excited. And then he got exceptionally lucky again because on the morning of the Dewhurst Stakes, the Line of Winter comes out. And he manages to just get up and not expanded on the line, who'd won a maiden the week before with poor old Ancient Truth back in third. That horse is no longer with us. You've got Flying Seagull, the Flying Seagull's 11 in behind. That horse is now gelded and getting beaten in the Jersey Stakes. That form is rubbish. It's rubbish. And I was adamant, this horse is no good. Like, you can't be getting overexcited about it. But I surround myself with people who are much smarter than me, and they all persuaded me, no, he's a superstar. No, he's going to crush them. No, he's going to unleash a magnificent performance. And I was bloody right. And I don't think he'll do anything this season. I know that there are people saying, you win the Breeders' Cup Mile. Good luck to you. Good luck to you if you want to back that horse on rattling fast ground in America. No, thanks. I don't think much of him at all. I would keep an eye on Whistle Jacket. Funnily enough, I think he's going to pop up in a race at one point or another. But the difference between him and Shadow of Light is you'll get a price about Whistle Jacket. You won't get a price about Shadow of Light. They'll keep telling you he's a great horse. Arizona Blaze ran a cracker. Well done to the Eustace team. Nothing else to say about it. I think just another bunch of pretty average horses that will just keep beating one another.
No, fair enough. Jaime, do you want to expand?
No, not really.
Okay.
Liam, no, not really. I think it was just a poor renewal. The Judman really want to look at themselves after the way Babouche run and putting Jonquil back 6 furlongs, which after nearly won a mile French 2000 Guineas against Henri Matisse, and what they were doing there. But I wouldn't. Exactly, Emmett said. I think if definitely there's a race in that Whistle Jacket on soft ground.
Yeah, that's crucial. Ground is crucial.
Yeah.
We'll move on then to the Coronation Stakes, and there was only one horse who was suggested, I think it was by myself, that I made lay during the week. I'll tell you what, she looked like winning for almost the entirety of the way, however. We don't want to focus too much on the runner-up, Zarigana. But obviously, Cersei was a good winner at a big old price, but did have some form in the book from over in Ireland. Zarigana, first of all, though, Jamie, I'll stick with yourself. I suppose questions now have to be asked about how genuine she is, or if she really wants to go and get the job done. Obviously, the back end of last season over in France, would she have ever gone by She's Perfect? Who knows? And then obviously when she did hit the front in this, she either idled or kind of lifted her head and didn't appear to want to go through with it. Or do you think I'm reading into that all wrong?
I don't know what to make of her, Liam. I'd be seriously worried. No, she won the race in France, but we won't go back to that now because it's the most headline and act of the whole year and whatever. But anyway, I don't know what to make of her. Like, she won the race, I thought, properly if you put it that way, in the French 1000. But I don't know. I don't know what to make of her. Is she good in a battle? The head carriage worries me when she comes under pressure. The head goes up in the air. I don't know. Cersei obviously is showing a big, huge, massive boost to Lake Victoria. It shows how good Lake Victoria was in the Irish 1000 Guineas. Some fella there in the corner with his strawberry earmuffs on him there said to me that January has a chance. And I backed January. I tipped him on the thing. I thought it was going to go by the two of them. But it was a good ride by inside by Gary Carroll, wasn't it? Yeah, got a massive fine for it afterwards, didn't he? For overstriking. That's another debate for another day. But it shows Lake Victoria in a bigger light. And could Lake Victoria step up as well? Is she out for the season? She's going to come back, isn't she? I think she is, isn't she?
Back for the matron stakes, apparently.
Yeah, for the matron stakes. Yeah, not beat Lake Victoria in the matron stakes, no matter if she's had a problem or not. Sarah Ganner for the future. I think we leave that for another day. Liam, you fancy her for something else? Would I be backing her? My answer is no.
I'm well aware that is your opinion, Jamie. Joe, does she just need a pair of blinkers, some softer ground, 1.5 miles, and to run in the Arc at 50 to 1, and she's worth a couple of quid each way? Or is that just for mad people?
You tell me so, mate. I'm more than happy to write that as well. But, the winner here to say, really big winner for Joseph Murphy. Really good trainer. Loads of horses. Doesn't necessarily get a lot of top hammer, but he does quite well, and he now has a Group 1 winner with Sunday. I don't actually think it's a fluke either. She obviously just won this over a mile, so she's now a Group 1 winner. But she's by Australia. So what I want them to do next is to give her a shot in the Irish Oaks over 1 mile 4. If she can win over a mile, then over 1 mile 4, and she is by Australia, she is going to be worth a fortune as a dam. And that would just be great for connection to deserve a nice big winner and a bit of joy in the life.
Emmet, what did you make of the Coronation Stakes? Obviously, don't want to focus too much on the runner-up, as I said, but obviously I've given her enough mentions. But yeah, I suppose your opinion on the event as a whole.
Really pleased with January's run. Would have been happier if she'd gone by, but she's shaped very nicely. And I'd interviewed Aidan O'Brien the week before, and he'd said, unprompted, Ryan's going to ride January in the Coronation, which made me go, what? Because I thought exactly it was a cracking each way bet for this race until Aidan O'Brien dropped that bombshell on the Final Furlong podcast, and then I proceeded to tell everybody and back her at 16 to 1. She then drifted out to 20s, so backed her again, and was nearly counting the money at one point. But she's run a blinder. Serene, it's great, as Joe said, it's great for Joseph Murphy. Well done to him. He's very, very likable person, really likable person to interview. He's a fantastic racing man. It's another Group 1 win for Australia, who's having a fantastic season. She's going to go for the Irish Oaks. It'll be interesting to see what she can do in that race. She obviously has the form. If she can stay, Australia would give her a chance. Not so sure about the dam side, but if she stays, she's very interesting. I think this just proves that Lake Victoria is the best 3-year-old in training. Zaragana is very, very talented, but she's a complete head case. She's just insane. And now we know why Miguel Barcelona rides her the way he does. You have to come fast and late so that she doesn't think about it. And that's what they learned in the Prix-Marcel Boussac. That's what he tried to do in the French 1000 Guineas when then the whole chaos happened. That's what he's tried to do in this race as well. And that might be what they do in the Arc. And funnily enough, Liam, if she was 20 to 1, I'd laugh at you and go, no. But she's 50s. 3-year-old fillies, 4-year-old fillies, they're the races who win. They're the horses who win the Arc. It's not a terrible shout.
I'm glad you're on board to a degree. Perfect. We'll move on to the Saturday. So these races become a bit hazy for me. I was indulging probably more in the Pims than I was the free food in my area. So I'll definitely have to defer to the lads in terms of their opinion. I do recall seeing Rebels Romance, however, on that track. Jamie, I'll start with you. I thought very impressive to my eye, being kind of from the 2 furlong pole-ish. What did you make? And obviously, of course, this is Charlie Appleby's first winner at Ascot in a good number of years as well, wasn't it? At the Royal meeting, that is.
Yeah, obviously came on and won the Yorkshire Cup, wasn't it? The Lonsdale Cup, whatever, after winning a mile and 6 race. Beat El Rifa and Ghost Rider and played him with some walk. I think someone's going to be with me here, and I would back him to win the King George, Rebels Ormond. I think he'll win. I think it's just the poor bunch. Glenn obviously won the weekend in the Grand Prix de Saint Cloud. Goliath bombed out, the winner of the King George last year. Clendegan to me can win soft grade 1s in France, but beaten by Jan Bruegel, who I think, exactly what we mentioned earlier, should be a cup horse down the line. Beat Clendegan obviously in the Coronation Cup over 1.5 miles, different track, but fast ground 1.5 miles her. I think there's any better horse in the world in a 1.5 miles on turf than Rebels Romance. So I will be backing him to win the King George, and I think he was impressive and onto more and more Group 1s for a very good horse, really.
Emmet, would you be following Jaime in with that bet?
Yeah, I put him up at 14s with William Hill on the day, right after he'd won this. And William Hill cut him as we were talking on air down to 9s. I think they pushed him back out to 10s since, but he's between 6-1 and 10-1 now. There's a couple of firms going 10s. It's massive for all the reasons that Jaime has just mentioned. Jan Bruegel was really good in the Coronation. I was with him that day. But is he going to back it up at Ascot over a mile 4 on really quick round, assuming the weather stays not so sure? Don't trust Calandigan. Really pleased to see him win a Group 1, but don't trust him at that price. Kalpana, I think she needs softer ground. Saucy's going to go for the Eclipse. Ombudsman, no thanks over that trip. He's the one horse there. And I know that a lot of people are going to look at him and say, but he was beaten on good to firm ground at Ascot last year. No, he wasn't. Remember, Aidan O'Brien kicked up a big fuss about how Auguste Rodin couldn't possibly have run his race because the ground was not good to firm. Ascot were saying it was and it wasn't. Well, There was proof of that because, one, Rebel's Romance is a good to firm ground horse, and he finished 3rd. Blue Stocking is absolutely not a good to firm ground horse. And Rafe Beckett was fooled into thinking that was good to firm ground and supplemented her for the Jumpment International on the back of that, which was good to firm ground, and City of Troy ripped her to shreds. So, and then she goes and wins an Arc on soft. So that was not good to firm ground that day. Rebel's Romance is a proper superstar. None of those horses from the Hardwick have any hope in hell of beating him. He'll improve again from that. He's got a genuine, serious chance of winning this race, and the way he'll be ridden tactically will suit as well. I think he'll take an awful lot of beating.
Joe, final thoughts on the Hardwick and Rebel's Romance performance?
Can you hear me okay, first of all?
Slightly crackly.
Well, we'll go quick on the end anyway. Yeah, really good. Amazing horse. Won in England, Germany, America, Hong Kong, Dubai, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. Just insane. Just a shame that he's already been gelded because he'd be worth millions upon millions. Really good winner. Fair play to him putting him up the King George a bigger price because I fancy a piece of him now myself.
Picking up money in those sort of countries. This is the first and probably only time I've said this cliche, but he's one you'd like to own, isn't he?
Yeah, it's the thing. It just wins everywhere. Crazy.
Good few quid in the Middle East. And finally, obviously, the QE2 Jubilee Stakes. Lazat, another one that I was impressed with, not one that filled my pocket with any money. Emmet, I'll start with yourself. What did you make of this performance? Where do you see him going moving forward? Or was there anything in behind that you think people should potentially be sticking in their notebooks?
Nothing in behind. They're all rubbish. But shout out to Adam Mills. Geez, that Storm Boy. My goodness. Johnny Deneen knew. He knew. Shout out to Coolmore for the promotion they did for him with AC/DC. Yeah. Anyway, shout out to Adam Mills. He was all over this horse for weeks. And on the morning of the race, he sent me a message going, Lazat just wins. I don't understand this drift at all. The Japanese must have been out in force for Satano Rev. They backed him with huge confidence. He's running a blinder, to be fair. I think if they kept him in Britain, he probably would win the July Cup because he's very good and our sprinters aren't. Lazat's almost certainly not going to go for that race, but he's just in a different league. It would have been handy for James Doyle to tell us beforehand, this is my banker of the week, but fair enough. Watnan obviously are huge supporters of racing. Royal Ascot means an awful lot to them. The fact that they had Kind of Blue and then went out and bought this fella for, given who they bought him from, would have cost an absolute fortune. That was telling you Kind of Blue's goosed. But also that this is a serious horse. Flora of Bermuda is the one horse I'd take out of the race, Liam. I don't like her for the July Cup just because of her price. They've made her 4-1 almost by default. She'll probably place in it, but she will win a Group 1 at some point this season. Hopefully she'll get beaten there. You'll get a bigger price and then you can strike. But there's a Group 1 in her for sure. Well, that's just in a completely different league. He's a gelding, so we'll get to enjoy him for a good few years. I think it's the Prix Maurice de Geese they're going for next. He'll probably win that. He'll probably win wherever he turns up. He's a monster.
Perfect. Joe the Dalek, we'll try with you again, mate. Lazat, what did you make of his performance? Much to add?
I think it's still going to be crackly. Nothing to add. Very good performance. I'll leave it there in case this sounds a bit.
Perfect, mate. Jaime?
Yeah, this is, I think, tipped him on the show as well, Liam, as well. I was very impressive. It was exactly what Emmet says. I was on that show with him that day, and Mr. Adam Mills was completely, utterly bullish. And that was, 4 or 5 weeks before the actual meeting that he'd win, and he latched me onto him. And it was the race, obviously, that in the race, in Rose Hill in Australia that I keep mentioning later when he was second to Lake Forest. Zach Primar East to East, I'd love to see him over because over 7 furlongs. I think he'd win Group 1s over 7 furlongs as well. I'd love to see him at York at that, but that probably won't happen. Exactly what Emmet's saying is just like when you see Symbol of Honor is the 4-1 joint favourite with Flora Bermuda for a July Cup, you're in trouble. So that by default, if Flora Bermuda can't win the July Cup because it's such a bad race, and if something gets supplemented from Hong Kong or something like that, you like it's such a bad race, and that's the horse I take out. Obviously, the Japanese horse is very good. I'd like to see it over this side of the world again, but we probably won't till next year maybe if the down. But no, Lazette is a really good horse, and win the Geese, and maybe. Hopefully, the trainer might say, "Oh, we might have to go 7 furlongs," but I think it might go because it's Gelding. It's going to go globe-trotting to Australia or something like that as well, isn't it?
Perfect. Before we finish up for this episode, obviously everyone can get hold of Joe's and myself's write-ups, tips and whatnot over at Oddschecker. But Jamie and Emmet, I'll start with yourself first, Jamie. One thing that Royal Ascot do right that could be adopted by any other race course across here or Ireland to improve their own race fixtures. And secondly, one potential bet that you have on your radar or horse for a particular race that to take out from Royal Ascot Week.
I suppose the main headline I saw was exactly like Joe kind of mentioned it there, was where you can go and you can make it as expensive as you want, or you make it as cheap as you want.
Yeah.
And then it's the £25, I think, where you can bring your own picnic and sit in the green area the other side and watch.
Imagine not having your own sandwiches taken off you at entry point of a race course. How brilliant would that be? Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. That's the one thing that stood out for me. Going forward, I backed a Joseph O'Brien horse in the Ascot Stakes, and I think it was third last year in the Irish Cesarovich, and I will be back in Nürburgring to go 2 places better in this year's version of the Irish Cesarovich. So he's the one to take out. He might go for the English version. Fair play to Henry de Bromhead, having a Royal Ascot winner. I couldn't decide between the two of them. Didn't back Ascending as cover. I was all over the Nürburgring to win that race, but he's definitely one to take out of the race. But what's the name of that horse that won the Cesarovich? Alphonse Legrand got a suspect right from Spencer. That's Spencer in a nutshell. And there was another one. Jesus. Le Bretagne, the one Spencer was.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I backed that.
So did I.
That was 7 furlongs. Was it a mile or 7 furlongs? There's definitely a race now. I can't. Is it Le Bon? I get it.
Le Bot. How did he get a beat?
Was that the Britannia? Wasn't it over a mile?
Yeah.
Britannia. Yeah. There's definitely, or is it? No, it was a Sandringham. It was one of them anyway.
No, it was the Britannia.
It was the Britannia. There's definitely a race in that Le Bot. Yeah.
Okay, there's a couple of them for the notebook. Cheers, Jamie. And Emmet, same for yourself.
If you're going to introduce new races to your festival, don't introduce races that are going to take away from the existing races. That's the Royal Ascot lesson to take. In terms of the customer experience, I mean, they have the advantage of the fact that the weather tends to hold up. It doesn't always. I remember Royal Ascot where it was lashing rain. But Ascot is a social event. You have to be seen there. And you want to be dressed up in your finery. And it's the social media clout of being there at Ascot and then telling your friends. Now, how many of the people who are at Ascot are waxing lyrical about Field of Gold and Trollman? I don't know, but they're able to make that work. The thing I would have a concern about with the Great British Racing campaign is if your ad campaign is all about, hey girl, I got to tell you about this amazing. That's nonsense, right? That could be any equestrian event. That could be show jumping. That could be dressage. You're not doing anything to promote the sport. You need to actually do advertisements that promote their welfare ad campaign. That was pretty cool. But again, you're kind of leaning into the please don't attack us animal rising. Do a campaign about Field of Gold. Do a campaign about Ombudsman. Do a campaign about any of those. Trawlerman keeps coming back year after year after year. These are the horses you need to be leaning into and build a campaign around that. In terms of a horse to follow, I was all over Humidity, thanks to Laura Joy's great work on the Final Furlong podcast. She was pointing out that Team Valor had bought the 4th horse from his maiden at Newbury. I'd covered that for Sky Sports Racing and Quinbet that day when he beat Title Roll. There'd been quite a bit of money for both of them. a Ulysses winning over 6 furlongs. I don't know if there's any Ulysses that's done that aside from him. The fact that Watnan prized him away from Cheveley Park, that can't have been easy. They must have paid a fortune for him. James Doyle sent a message to Oisin Murphy, friend of the show, asking him, how would you describe this horse? And he sent back a rocket emoji, and that was it.
I did see that. Yeah.
That's class. The horse he beats, the secret adversary, gets beaten by Italy first time out. That's strong form. It certainly looks that Italy's very highly regarded. The Charlie Johnston horse, who's just been run out of third, she's highly regarded. The O'Brien horse is very highly regarded. Moments of Joy. I think this Humidity is a proper horse. You can get 12, 16 to 1 for the 2,000 guineas. Aidan O'Brien doesn't care about the 2,000 guineas anymore. Don't touch a Coolmore horse for that race. But Humidity, that's the one to be with.
Perfect. Humidity for Emmet, and then Nürburgring for one of the big fields as our handicaps towards the back end of the season. Go on, Jamie, quickly.
Just one point that like Emmet's saying there as well about field sizes and putting horse races and keeping them there after the COVID pandemic. Unfortunately, it happened. I think this nonsense, I'd make one point and I'll shut up about Cheltenham again, is that get rid of all these rules and regulations when it comes to the handicaps. You need 4 runs, 5 runs. That is rid of that needs to all go. Get rid of all of it, and just get rid of all of it. Just put a handicap.
You can't run in a hurdle race unless you've had 5 runs of a hurdle.
Yeah,
Nonsense.
It's absolute nonsense. And we'll shut up about Cheltenham on the 1st of July.
Perfect. We'll be back later in the week with a preview towards the weekend's racing. But lastly, just to thank you very much, Emmet, for your time. I know you're an extremely busy man, so I appreciate you giving up your time to join us to review Royal Ascot. We hope that everybody's enjoyed it. Give it a like and comment below what your highlight of the week was, and we will see you again later in the week.
Thanks, Emmet.